So it's the 1st of July and Cardiff City are the only team in League One that have not yet made a signing. How much of a problem is this? Well, the obvious contexts are A, the somewhat protracted head coach search, which ended in the appointment of Barry Murphy, and B, something that impacts almost every team that suffers relegation at any level. What will happen to the existing squad? I think it's fair to say that after a relegation season, fans always want to see some freshness, and they've got that in the dugout with Barry Murphy, who has made a good first impression, but they haven't yet made any signings. And by contrast, Plymouth Argyle, who themselves only appointed their manager Tom Cleverley recently, have had loads of churn already. 5-6 players in, a couple of the players from last season have moved out. So how much of an issue is this? Well, on the 1st of July, that spells the end of Joe Rules, Aaron Ramsey, Andy Rinomhota, Jamilu Collins, Anwar El Ghazi, Dimitrios Goutas, Yaku Mete, 7 senior players on decent wages. Those sorts of players on those sorts of contracts are important obstacles in the way of building a fresher squad. And so I'm sure we will see some movement over the next few weeks. But departures play a huge role here. Dropping down from the Championship to League One comes with around a £10 million drop in revenues. Cardiff City will want to make sure that that hole is filled with some departures. But from a player point of view, it's kind of hard to say exactly who will be sold, because not that many of Cardiff City's players did enough last season to have tons of interest from higher up the pyramid. You'd say that Josef Salek is an obvious one, and Alex Robertson as well. But I would imagine those are the 2 players that Cardiff as a club are most keen to keep hold of because of what damage they could do at League One level and the value that they retain as assets. There's older pros like Perry and G, Callum O'Dowda, who may want to move back up to the Championship and feel they are established Championship players. I'm not sure how much transfer value these guys have. And I'm not sure that they are top level Championship players that Championship clubs will be falling over to sign. So I do predict that it could still drag on a little bit, this squad churn. Now there's a big if here, and that is that on paper, for League One level, the existing squad is a strong squad. It's a good squad. And if Barry Murphy has made a really good first impression with the players, that might have helped tip a few of the dissenters, a few players that may have angled for a move. That might tip them back onto the blue side, get them thinking, you know what, this is a guy that I want to play for. This is a style of play that I want to play, and I can boost my own value if I perform well for Cardiff City in League One, if we win promotion. That could be a really powerful thing. But if that doesn't happen, and if there are too many players that are still grumbling, angling for a move back to the Championship, these problems could last until, well, late August, right up until deadline day. And that's really unhelpful for Barry Murphy as he looks to make a fresh start here. In terms of the amount of money that Cardiff will spend, you look elsewhere in League One, and Huddersfield are splashing the cash, and Blackpool have made some quite eye-catching free transfer signings. I'm unclear how much money will be spent by Cardiff here, and I think it will mostly depend on how much they bring in from player sales. The losses in recent years have been so significant, and I don't know how much appetite there is for more losses on that scale now that the club is in League One. So those departures are really, really important. And then in terms of where the squad could do with some new bodies, I mean, you could probably make a case for pretty much every area of the pitch. I think in goal, Anik versus Horvath. With Barry Murphy, I remember from his spell at Rochdale, is that he had Gavin Bazunu on loan and Robert Sanchez on loan. These were 2 incredibly young goalkeepers. They both came under a lot of pressure and conceded a lot of goals playing out from the back, but he valued them because of what they could do with the ball, because they could start attacks with clipped passes, long passes, short passes. And I do wonder if he might look for someone with more of a ball playing profile in goal. And I wouldn't be surprised if it is like a Premier League or top Championship loanee goalkeeper. We've seen a lot of them have success in League One and League Two over the last few seasons. At centre-back, if everyone stays, they're obviously pretty well stocked. I did wonder whether they might look at Luton Town, another relegated Championship club, and they have a massive surplus of centre-backs, and one in particular, Mads Andersen, could be a good option for a top League One club. He's had a tough time at Luton, but he is a solid defender at this level, and I think if Cardiff want to boost their numbers in that area with proven peak age central defensive talent, Mads Andersen could be an interesting shout for them. One area of the pitch where I know Barry Murphy will want to have strong options is in deep midfield areas. And of course, Ryan Wintle is in the squad, but I think this is a really important area to freshen up and get more legs while retaining ball playing ability from deep. And I think the obvious transfer target for Cardiff should be Kamil Conte of Bristol Rovers. Had an amazing few years with Gateshead, with Grimsby, with Bristol Rovers. He has looked excellent every time he stepped up a level, and Bristol Rovers' relegation was nothing to do with Conte's poor performances, far from it. Because he's now down in League 2, there's got to be a chance for a top League 1 club to go and grab him. I'm sure Bristol Rovers will try and keep hold of him, but Conte, in terms of being able to look after the ball, keep it moving, and with his physicality winning the ball back, would be a fantastic addition to this Cardiff City midfield. Another option, more of a box-to-box number 8, crashing the box and offering goal threat. Obviously, Alex Robertson is going to be starring in that sort of role if he stays. If he doesn't, that is an area of the pitch where they should be looking to add as well. Someone like John Russell, who had a really good goal-scoring season for Barnsley last season, and I believe has some interest in him. Russell brings size. He's just learned to use his physicality, and a breakout season last season. And I think playing for a team like Cardiff in a number 8 box-to-box role, again, could be the sort of person that you'd get 10 plus goals from, which would be hugely valuable and a great profile for Barry Murphy to add to his squad. Again, in the wide areas and up top, so much depends on who stays and who goes. If Salek stays, you don't need to add too much other than potentially a younger striker, a striker with speed, someone like a Malik Mothersill from Peterborough could be an interesting option, absolutely electric pace, or even someone like Kelvin Ehebashiman of Reading. He's been offered a new contract, but I haven't heard yet whether that's signed or not. He will be available on a free with just some compensation to be paid, and he's a really interesting player profile. Reminds me a bit of Haji Wright, who plays for Coventry in the Championship. He's tall, he's gangly, but he can carry the ball. He's got real technical skill. He can play off the left or as a number 9. I think that could be a good an interesting option as like a development signing for Cardiff, someone who could support Salek and offer goals off the bench and feasibly grow in this new Cardiff era. And then of course there's going to be links with players that Barry Murphy's worked with previously, with Manchester City in particular, and there's a huge group of names that could fit the bill here. Some of them would be permanents, many of them would be loans. If he's looking for a left back, depending on what he thinks about O'Dowda and Bagan, there's a young player called Thomas Galvez that could be interesting for Barry Murphy. He'll know him very, very well from his time at Man City, Finland youth international, who had a loan in the second tier in the Netherlands last season. There's Josh Wilson-Esbrand, who could be a really interesting option at left back. He's obviously had a few championship loans, and so might not want to drop down to League One unless it's to join up with a manager that knows him very well and could finally be the one to kind of unlock the quality that he's shown at youth level. I'll certainly be keeping an eye on Wilson-Esbrand. You've got guys like Luke Mbete, who was, at the time he was in the Man City Academy playing for their PL2 team. He was considered their best left-footed centre-back at that age group, and it was an age group that included Callum Doyle, who now plays for Norwich City, last season on loan and looked really, really good. So Mbete's had some tougher times on loan, but you have to think that quality, those qualities that he has, could still come to the surface in the right system with the right manager, and that could be someone that knows him very well in Barry Murphy. So Luke Mbete is another one to look out for. Finn Burns as well, similarly has had a few championship loans that haven't quite worked out, and it may be worth him just dropping down to League One, being a starter and kick-starting his senior career. And then Micah Hamilton is another one, a really skillful wide player. He's a Middlesbrough player who was on loan at Stockport last season, and he hasn't had much of a look in at either of those clubs, but those who know Hamilton really believe there's a player in there, and as BBM knows him very well from his time at Man City, again, I wouldn't be that surprised if he wants to add a few players like this just to fill out his squad, guys that he knows, guys with elite academy background who could feasibly kick on at Cardiff, help kickstart a new era, and potentially make the club a lot of money down the line, because they are the sorts of players that you then sell on to lower Premier League, top Championship clubs in a year or two. And that's what Cardiff have to do, because in terms of player sales, they've been really poor for a long time, and it just leads to money being wasted, poor squads being built consistently. That's the cycle that Cardiff have to stop. So Cardiff fans, what do you think is going to happen with this squad? If you had to put a number on how many signings you'd expect, where would you put that range? Because as you can tell, I think so much is tied to the departures of the existing squad, and I'd be really interested to know who the players are that will leave, are likely to leave, would like to leave, because I think there's a good squad here. And I think in a dream scenario, Barry Murphy gets everyone on side, adds a sprinkling of talent in the right areas, and the team really kick on and start really, really strongly. I don't think this necessarily needs to be a squad that is completely ripped up and remolded in the space of 2 months, but equally you never know what's happening behind the scenes, and it could be that that's what happens over the next 8 weeks. Let us know in the comments below, and head to dragonsports.co.uk for all the best Welsh sports news with no ads.